I should collect stamps.
Let's get this out of the way up front. When Stamp Swap was announced as the new title by iconic publisher Stonemaier Games, I was all, stamps? But then once I actually got punching out those little cardboard beauties and getting the game to the table, I was like, stamps. The thing is, that experience of initial frustration only to get to the sweet existential elation of putting those stamps into your tableau isn't just some metatextual story about coming around on the theme. It's actually something that mirrors the very nature of playing the game. Here, let me explain. StampCon, you're living it. In each of 3 rounds, cards equal to players are drawn, dictating the shapes and face up or down orientation of stamps and special ability and scoring cards that are up for grabs. Then players take turns drafting 6 each, applying whatever round effects are on the last revealed display card. Since every player has one category of stamps by default that you get bonuses for, you go, dog, I want that sick anteater, or yo, I gotta peep me some foxglove. But the thing is that this draft isn't going to dictate what you get to keep, it's only dictating what you might possibly get to keep if you play your cards, cards and stamps right. Of the 6 things you secure, which can be stamps, cards, or the first player token, you can keep one thing guaranteed to be yours, with the caveat that the super shiny rare stamps can't be secured at this point. Then, after you peek at any of your face down stamps to assess what their true value is, you split the rest into 2 piles for everyone to ogle over as you go into the swap phase. Starting with the first player, they get to snag 1 pile from someone else to put into their reserve, after which that player's remaining pile goes to their reserve, and then like some grand white elephant, they get to snag a pile in turn, and so on. Once swapping is done, players assemble the reserved items into their tableau. Then, in one of the most brilliant and innovative aspects of the game, each player gets to put a ticket underneath one scoring category they haven't visited in a prior round, immediately scoring points based off of the semi-randomized condition within. Complete 3 rounds, apply some finale scoring for a final global category card and ranking with forever stamps, along with the point values on stamps, specialists, and exhibitor cards, and most points wins. See, here's the thing. Stamp Swap is a game that invites you to get genuinely super invested in collecting stamps, but there's a whole lot that has to happen each round before you actually get what you get. You have to display the stamps, then draft them, then you have to split them up in a super speculative way in hopes of getting to keep the ones that you actually want to keep, but inviting other players to grab a pile of yours so that way you can sooner grab something of someone else's. You need to do a lot to get all the goods. Then finally, sweet assembly, which in the end may or may not be the stamps you wanted in the first place. There are layers of removal from the part that you actually want to get to, and those layers are gameplay, and pretty good gameplay, but they veer pretty close to frustrating tedium if you were just looking to play some spatial arrangement game and place some ding-dang stamps. There is some brilliance here though, even if it's an odd sort of cadence. Aside from the aforementioned selective scoring, it's really cool that the specialist cards, which grant special powers ranging from being able to look at face-down stamps while drafting, to drawing extra stamps from the supply when you cut a certain way, to being able to swap one of your daily takes with someone else's after all the swapping is done. These cards are in effect so long as they are in your player area. Sure, when taken in reserve, they are permanently yours, but even when part of the cut pile that may or may not be snagged by someone, you still reap their effects. This makes for some really interesting decisions in what you prioritize, even if in a temporary measure. Again, I've played so many games with so many structures, and this rhythm feels weird, kinda stilted, but by my 3rd play, it was starting to feel a bit more natural. And the visuals do a remarkable job of making the mundane feel exciting, both authentic to the sort of old-timey look on stamps, while throwing in a lot of eye-catching and visually interesting details, even if the additional measures Stonemaier tried putting in for colorblind and category distinction are just barely there. Then there's the ultra valuable and always coveted shiny gold rare stamps, which is the only thing that can't be immediately reserved after drafting. So if chosen as a face down stamp, you gotta be coy about how you make your splits to not draw attention, but if drafted and split face up, it'll be a radiating beacon like Marcellus Wallace's briefcase, but maybe that's the perfect distraction. This is a game that I came to mainly as a curiosity, not really expecting much, after I felt like the recent titles like Rolling Realms and Expeditions by the same publisher didn't really work for me. But this game hit surprisingly well with my group, both being casual enough that I could take it to the local public game night and teach some newcomers as well as my 9-year-old, and they could have a great time. But there's a little bit more of game design debonair than your typical lightweight spatial arrangement game that satisfied the more dedicated of the group. One more thing I want to hit on is the solo mode by the always admirable Automa Factory. Morten Monrad Peterson and co. developed a surprisingly strong adaptation through their Pinzetta, in spite of I Split You Choose being a relatively social mechanism. New cards show yours in Pinzetta's daily allotment, so the drafting aspect is gone, but with some fairly easy to follow rules, you know what draws her attention, and you arrange a larger and smaller pool after reserving your one held stamp for the round. With a card drawn to account for fickle whims, possibly offsetting the otherwise deterministic values, she takes a group, then arranges her own daily collection for a fairly even split. You choose from hers, and she gets points for her own scoring system. It's not quite the same as the act of playing the base game, but there's more strategic oomph and goading than I expected. Not enough to recommend grabbing this as a primarily solo experience, but a very admirable adaptation nonetheless. It's a game that I would recommend for folks who like something a little bit quirky, a little bit twee. If you don't like drafting or I Split You Choose mechanics, then I don't think this is going to convince you otherwise. But if spatial puzzle games aren't your thing, this still might be worth checking out, especially because the tension comes from getting the stamps, and the arrangement and scoring process is generally a bit more forgiving. Stamp Swap isn't the game that I expected, and in some ways I still feel like I'm fighting against the damn system to get the dang stamps that I want, but ultimately I found that for me, that was a big part of the appeal, and it's a game that I'm really looking forward to playing more of. And that's our review, but let me know, what did you think about this game when it was first announced? What did you think about the theme? Was it something you were super excited about, or was it something you were initially hesitant to? And is there a seemingly mundane theme that you would love to see adapted into the world of board games? Put it in the comments, and as always, thanks for watching, thanks for supporting, thanks for being such a great community. You know that I've been Jack for the Cardboard Herald.